And we're live.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to our fifth beautiful full day of GildefiCon. We have these wonderful authors and narrators joining us today for our panel. We are so looking forward to it emerging.
What we
Uh,
can do ahead.
let's start with Jeff.
Jeffrey.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand him at all.
You just said let's start with you.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
I do apologize.
No problem. So, despite my falcon in the middle name, the actual bird is with Dawn, who may poke the head out. That's super cute, by the way, Dawn. Hi, guys. I'm Jeffrey Falcon Logue, and I primarily write Dungeon Core, Slime Bio Dungeon being my big series there. And I've also recently been writing a corporate dark sci-fi, and I'm writing a giant robot story right now and a dark urban later.
Hi, Ryan.
Who's next? Misty?
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Misty Zog, and since we're doing a panel on genre switching, I have some dystopia stuff, some straight post-apoc, a couple series, and lately I'm doing lit RPG under MZog, so as not to confuse Amazon. And I've been writing since I was a little kid, but professionally as in publishing the last 5 years, and looking forward to answering any questions you have. And I think that's about it.
All right, guys, I'm going to step in. Cal's having a little bit of technical difficulties.
Aw.
So, Daniel, why don't we have you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi there, everyone. I'm Daniel Wisniewski. I'm a professional voice actor, narrator. I've narrated almost 200 books, 200 by the end of the year, all over the course of classic fantasy, lit RPG, sci-fi, romantasy, hard just romance, and yeah, a lot of experience all across a multitude of genres, as it were. Good day, Scott. And good morning, Damien.
All right. So, sorry for losing you for a second. I just lost connectivity issues, but I'm back. All right.
Your turn, Dawn.
Yeah. So I'm Dawn. I write a fair few different genres, and that's my little tiny bird in the background that you can hear. I do genre hop quite a lot between. I'm going to chase him. Go. Chase him back in the bathroom. Yeah, so I genre hop quite a bit, which is why I kind of picked this panel to come on. I've got quite a few books under my belt, lots of different types of subgenres within the niche of lit RPG. So happy to be here. Okay, there we go.
Exciting. All right. So have we gone through all of our panelists? Okay. Yep. So we're in the panel of switching genres. So I find this to be an interesting subject for a narrator because I think you switch genres all the time. But for authors, what is it like to go from what you've written for a long time and then switch to something new? Let's start with Misty.
I find that there's a lot of similarities in storytelling. So, obviously what's a good story in romance or westerns or whatever is going to, some of those main components stay the same. But I think your biggest change is going to be your tropes. And especially as indie authors, we kind of adapt pretty quickly to what the current market wants versus some of the traditional publishers. So you got somebody that, just if you've looked at lit RPG over the last few years, it started with like Portal or Trapped in the Game type of stories. And those have kind of gone their path. And now we're kind of towards the OP characters and stuff like that. So I think as you switch genres, your big thing, if you're interested in being successful, is to read a lot of the current best-selling stuff, things that are selling well, and take note of the specific tropes that are doing well. So, you're still going to have some kind of best friend or some kind of mentor figure in a lot of your fantasy sci-fi stuff, but you may not have that mentor figure over in your romance. You're going to have the happily ever after or the misunderstood relationship that they had to break up for, things like that. So that's what I would say is the big difference, is the main tropes that the current audience wants to pay money for. And if you mess that up, then they won't pay money for your story.
I can appreciate that. So what about you, Don?
Because I kind of write the more niche kind of sub genres within lit RPG, it's talking like sci-fi and that kind of stuff. I do think that without us actually trying the different sort of like cross genre, sort of like diversifying everything, there's just going to be literally just like fantasy, same trope, same this, same that. So I'm the kind of person that really does like to step out and do that little bit different. It doesn't sell as well, don't get me wrong, it's not easy, but it's something that I love. I'm a sci-fi person through and through. I was brought up with all kinds of the 80s sci-fi stuff, so that's just how I read and how I want to write. I can try and sort of go the more fantasy kind of stuff, but it's still not me. So I'm prepared for my stuff to not sell as well, but it's just who I am personally. So that's me.
I get that completely. What about you, Jeffrey? What's the difficulty in switching into a new genre?
You muted, Jeffrey. We can't hear you.
Jeffrey, you're muted.
My mistake. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
The dog started barking. So I kind of like Don. I kind of write in a subset of the Game Lit RPG author. I write Dungeon Core, and last couple of books I've written were also sci-fi with some Game Lit RPG elements to it. But actually, the first thing I ever wrote, but I didn't publish it, was one of those online video Game Lit RPGs. Yeah. But I published Slime Dungeon first, and that was doing well. And when I published finally the Hero of Naught book, it was just night and day success compared to the Slime Dungeon. And I was wondering why, but then I sort of figured out, and I've continued to learn things, like when your audience expects a certain thing from you, they don't necessarily translate to your new thing when you want to do it. So you write Dungeon, and then all of a sudden you write Mecha. That audience won't necessarily flow over there. Your hardcore audience will, but generally speaking, people have a preference. They won't jump from romance to dark urban, for instance. But the other things floating around is you also have to take into consideration, like your cover art, for instance. The first cover art I did for my sci-fi was more cartoony, I would say, but still realist, just like I like to do with my fantasy Dungeon Core stuff. But I didn't think that people who like sci-fi, they don't really like cartoony. They like, they like the spaceship on the cover. They like the Marine and the combat armor.
Yeah. So
we changed the cover art, and it's been a lot more popular. It's still not the same level as my dungeon stuff, but you have to. I switched genres to sort of take a break, to give my mind something new to do, and because it's fun. But that doesn't necessarily, equate to success.
Yeah, 100%.
That's completely understood. And Daniel, like I said, with narrators, I'm certain you have to switch genres all the time. How difficult is that?
You're muted.
All right.
No, I can't.
Yep. Okay. Don't know
Next
what's
question.
happening.
He disappeared.
Okay. Just a sec. I'm sure he'll be back.
Yep.
So we'll move on to our first question, and then we'll go back to Daniel. So it comes from Damian Mann, and he's asking, what's everyone's favorite book that they have done in a different genre?
Sorry about that.
Oh, he's back.
It's okay, Daniel.
Oh,
We'll come back to you, I promise. All right. So same question as we had before this. As a narrator, how difficult is it to switch from the different genres, and does it affect your fan base?
So to switch genres, I guess, I mean, like, the fan base, I'd say, is fairly consistent, because I've found that most people that listen and are active listeners and actively engage with me, as, you know, saying, I listen to your stuff, they listen to everything. They listen to the fantasy, they listen to the sci-fi, they listen to the romance, even the early ones. I wish they didn't, but I appreciate it. But the thing I found is that people will follow you across the genres, and I think the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around switching genres as a performer is just within the genre, what type is it? Like, within fantasy, is it a lit RPG, or is it classic fantasy? Do they want sort of a classic voice for it, or do they want something more modern? For sci-fi, is this like a exploration? Is this a war-based sci-fi? Is this some sort of, you know, sci-fi comedy, a la Hitchhiker's Guide or something like that? So all of that does color the performance, but I found that, like, people will follow you if they like what you do, because they trust that the way you tell the story will still be good. It'll be different, but it'll be good. So, yeah.
Completely understood. All right, so we had a previous question, and I'm going to go back to it, from Damien Mann. What's everyone's favorite book that they have done, whether it be in your current genre or one you've made a switch to? Let's start with Jeffrey on this one.
Okay. So that answer would probably be different once I get started and finish the Dark Urban. But I'd have to say right now, the favorite book I've done was Bio Dungeon. That's the book I co-wrote with Jonathan Brooks, who's another Dungeon Core author. And that one is interesting because it's not pure Dungeon Core. It's also epic fantasy from the human's perspective. We combined I was a genetics major before my writing success. Then I switched to creative writing, so all I got's a minor. But I had to use that suffering for something. So the dungeon perspective inside the body, with all the white blood cells, all the accurate biology, and then the actual human that he's inside of perspective of the classic epic story of growing in power and political intrigue and epic fights. And I really enjoy that series. I really want to come back to that with Jonathan.
Completely understood. Misty, what book
Generally,
been your favorite?
Whatever book I'm currently writing tends to be my favorite, because I figure if I'm going to be an author, I should enjoy what I'm writing. So if I don't love my current project, then I should switch projects, do something else. In my post-apoc, I had a great time writing. I wrote a virus series. I would like to point out in 2019, I wrote a post-apocalyptic virus book, which we then held on with the whole COVID stuff. But that was pretty eerie, seeing a lot of the stuff we got right, and we got some things wrong. We missed the toilet paper, but it was pretty funny to send stuff out to my newsletter about what would you put in your go bag if there was a virus, a pandemic type thing. And then I got feedback from newsletter readers who were like, because of you, I went and spent my tax refund on getting a whole bunch of supplies that I had been putting off, and I got them in February of 2020. Thank you so much. So that was actually pretty fun to have written a fiction series that then predated what actually happened right after it, and to feel like I'd helped out some readers with that. But I've read so much lit RPG. I actually loved your Bio Dungeon series. I have an MD, so I like the doctor stuff. And so I was like, this is so creative to actually put the dungeon in a body. So I was like, wow, these guys know their medical stuff. So it was almost like you wrote it just for me. So thanks. But now that I'm actually writing my own lit RPG, I feel like this fangirl who's like, stepping into the room going, here, look, I'm doing it too now. So I really enjoy it. I love the genre.
I'm going to go with Daniel on this one because I love Dawn, but I'm going to give her plenty of time to answer.
Oh no.
Oh, then I'll be quick. But no. I know this is going to be such a vague, artsy-fartsy actor answer, but I love them all. But honestly, I enjoy pretty much everything I've done because I have the mindset of you got to find the good as a performer. You got to find what makes you excited, and every book has something good about it. Everything that was created with passion and with heart has something good inherently. And that's kind of like my job throughout the narration to find that. Some are a little bit more easier than others. And some get me a bit more excited because, that it captures what excites me. For example, I loved working on Battleborn, the Dave Wilmarth series, because the absolute massive cast and voice choices and character options for that series, just that excites me as a performer, to be able to do a massive amount of characters. But then recently, I worked on a series from Chris Kennedy Publishing, Hunters and Hijinks, Salvage Universe series. Like, it's a whole wonderful space comedy series that also has a great cast of characters that just, I can find the voices, I can find the humor in that. So yeah, pretty much everything I've liked. But some stick out more than others, yeah.
All right. So Dawn, what is your favorite book you've written?
I've got to be honest here, and I'll admit, I actually came out at Dragon Con under my pen name because I've been stalked for a couple of months by somebody who was nastily trying to expose me on one of the groups. So my pen name, which is, you can see kind of like behind me anyway. So, but it is actually one of my favorite books. It's called Zero Car, and it's by Alex Knowles. That's me. And it was my favorite book because I actually wrote 85,000 words in 7 days. And it combined everything that I loved about my past: racing cars, motorbikes, cultivation, just literally completely genre hop from everything I know to something that I loved as a teenager. And that's just, the characters came to life. And it just wrote itself, really. Like I say, 8 days, the whole book. It took me a lot longer to edit it, don't get me wrong. I didn't publish it as it was. It actually come out at I think it was about 110,000 words, but that's fine. It was ultimately my absolute favorite book, and I love the characters. So that's me.
All right. So we have a question from Ryan Maxwell. He asked, you've mentioned lesser success in genre hopping, so you feel it's a good idea to switch genres, even if it means less success, to write the story you want. That's very interesting, but I'm going to start with Jeff on this one.
All right. Yes. So I mentioned that earlier. So when you're writing, you always write what you want to write. But eventually, you kind of get into a bit of a rut when you're writing the same thing over and over again, I feel, in the same kind of a story, the same kind of characters. And even if there's success, you kind of want to branch out a little bit more. You want to experiment and try things out. And so I just think, to avoid burnout, I think it's a good idea to just do other things and to experiment. You don't necessarily have to, publish it. You could just write it on Royal Road as like your side hustle and see how well that does. But I would definitely think, for the sake of your mentality and your creative spirit, that you have to take a break at some point and just experiment and try to improve your craft as an author, because you might try different writing techniques or story techniques in different genres that might improve your overall ability.
Very nice. I'm going to go to Dawn for this next one.
Oh, well, I'd agree completely. It's a case of I've had some success with Space Seasons, obviously. It was really, really great to write. But when sort of like Alex came along, it was literally a competition on Reddit serials. And they literally gave you a cover, a pen name, and a title and said, here, I'll go and write a book or write something and publish it. And we'd run a little competition. That was it. So that's how Alex was born. And The Bright Lord was it was just 50,000 words of pure fun when I needed it. It's not perfect. You couldn't spend any money on it. So it was like no professional editing, no marketing, no anything. It was literally put it out there and off it went. And I actually enjoyed it that much. I kept the pen name, obviously. And I wrote another six books with it. And it was just the most fun I ever had. And I don't think, if you didn't genre hop and you didn't step out of your comfort zone and do things that sort of like other people would never try, then nobody's ever going to think, oh, I really want to try a sci-fi book. And the question itself comes up in the groups so many times. It's like 2-3 times a week. Give me the sci-fi books, give me this, give me the female main characters. And they don't sell as well, but they are getting out there. So never give up. Keep striving to write the books that you love, because people will love it just as much as you. There's just not as many. So you have to be prepared for it. That's what I think.
Completely understood. I mean, there's always going to be challenges is when it comes to making a swap to a different genre. But if it's what you want to do, it's everything. Let's go to Misty.
I agree with both Dawn and Jeffrey. You have to love what you do, and you also need to do a little bit of change up every now and then so your brain doesn't get tired. I was feeling that in my post-apoc. I had a 2 series there, and it's like, how many more times can I talk about, surviving after the society falls apart and the bad guys next door trying to steal your stuff? And I just felt like I was getting tired of repeating the same tropes when they talk about trying to do tropes. So it was nice. It's nice to go switch over. I also recommend sitting down and doing some research. If you're going to genre hop, you got to figure out what your goals are. So if your goal is straight up, I just want to enjoy what I'm writing, I don't care if it sells, that's a different goal than I want to make money at this, and that's all I care about. Or some combination of the two, which I think is where most of us fit. And, I'm a little nerdy, so if you like Venn diagrams, you can sit down and even just in Lit RPG, you can say, what are the subgenres I like to read? Because that's kind of where you start. And then go look and see, in those subgenres that I like to read and would maybe want to write, these are the ones that are selling well. Well, I'm not going to write this or this, no way. But hey, this is one I would be interested in. And so that's kind of where I approach it, is I look for where those two intersect. What I really enjoy reading, what I would like to write, and then what is also selling well, and try and find that little overlapping spot. So that, I feel like creative people should be compensated for their work. So, I think we need to figure out a way to do what we enjoy, do what we love, provide a service that people enjoy and love, but also make enough money to make it worth our time. Nobody wants to be paid $2 an hour for, slaving over something that they really loved and put their heart into and have it be poorly received. So
I've got to add on there, because I think you made a good point there, Misty, is the fact that we do kind of need to be paid. Looking at sort of like all the other genres and how other authors and indie authors do, even though technically I've still not done as good as like some of the bigger people in our genre, in our groups, I'm still selling more than most indie authors. I'm still making enough to technically be full-time on my earnings. So that kind of really helps, and it helps me to be able to write the things I want to write, because it's still enough, but it's just not quite enough. I'd still like, obviously everybody wants more. But
Well, and if you look at it too, when you write something, like the reason we write it isn't so we can go put it on a shelf, right?
no,
So we want someone to read it and love it. And so
Yeah.
that actually goes hand in hand with business success. So it isn't just this
It does.
mercenary, I want more money. It's like, I would also like this thing that I created to be received by and
Yeah.
enjoyed by lots of people. And along
is.
with that comes lots of, purchases, hopefully. So it's kind of a,
it is.
yay, my book is being read. Oh, yay, and they're paying me for it. So.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to change the question just a little bit for Daniel, but just because he hasn't exactly written in a specific big book or
Yet.
yet. I love you so much for that answer, Daniel. That just makes everything better.
Oh,
So in that very same sense, how difficult is it to do not necessarily a book that you may not have as much interest in? Like, we see you more often in lit RPG, but we also know you in other genres.
mhm.
How difficult is it to pop into another genre when you really prefer to be here?
That's a good question. I think that, I do kind of cheat at that, because my favorite genres are fantasy and sci-fi. So I have kind of made it so that I can't really, or I don't really work in other genres already. So, but there are the niches that I'm not as crazy about. I'm not the biggest fan personally of romance. I don't really read it in my spare time. But I know that other people are, and I know that other people seem to enjoy it when I read it. And so to me, that's what helps carry me through something that I personally might be not a fan of. It's knowing that somebody else is, and they're a fan of you doing this. And if there are certain moments where there are certain chapters where it's a bit of a slog to get through, or if it's a bit more of a push the boulder up the hill, that helps me to get through it. To know that somebody will enjoy this, this will make somebody's day, and that, also reminding myself, you're getting paid for this. This is something that people think you're good enough that they are paying you money to do. And I know that might be a bit of a shallower answer on that side, but money's a good motivator. And also, people being open about what they like is an equally good motivator. So it kind of depends on one or the other. And then booking a lot of work in the other genres that I do like. So that helps.
I get that. So there's an interesting question that I think both applies to our authors and our narrators, from James Smith. How do you all handle stats? And I'm actually going to go to Daniel for this one, in the sense of, how difficult is it when there are so many stats as a narrator?
I love it because it makes my day a little quicker, because I can just read it in the way that people prefer and I can just get them out. It is difficult because every voice in a book should have personality. It shouldn't feel like it's just a recitation of a computer, even if it is a computer's recitation. It needs that human element. Otherwise, why not just listen to an AI read you a book? So for that, it's sort of just, how do I say this most basic of information in a way that captures their attention, makes them interested, like even slightly, even in the smallest way. So it's usually just in the inflections, it's in the where the pauses are, it's in how you read this, like exactly how you read the stats. But I don't mind the stats. I do enjoy reading the stats because, again, it gives me a break for if I'm just coming off a big battle and it's just, okay, numbers. Okay, this is good. I can wrap my head around this. And I've noticed some authors now put them in separate chapters, like they're off on their own, which I think is a great idea, so that, people can skip if they want, or if they don't have to, they want to hear the numbers. So I think that if it's in that format and it's just by itself and I'm just reading numbers, totally fine.
All right, I'm going to go to Don for this, but I'm going to have a quick hit comment. Paul, I would totally, absolutely banter with you, but I've got to focus on these guys. So, Don,
Yeah, that's
how do you handle stats?
I come from originally listening to audiobooks like when they first started coming out, and they literally were pages and pages of stats. You can't get away from it. So when I kind of first started really delving into writing lit RPG myself, it was like you had to include everything. And that's how I started with Space Seasons. And obviously, with rapid releasing the book, sort of like one every month, it was like you soon got to know within the second month, oh no, we really don't like these stat sheets, blah, blah, blah. The best thing about audio editing my own book was the fact that I could actually go in and just like, right, well, let's just axe all this and just cut it right down. And that's what we did. So kind of like into book 3 and book 4 for Space Seasons, we just literally altered a few things, and it was like, so just give me the updates, what's changed. And that's literally what I put in the actual final audiobooks. Things have changed a lot in the last 6 years. And it is nice that people do put stat sheets in different chapters. It's not always easy in the middle of a chapter to separate it, and then so you kind of have to. You can either put it at the beginning or put it at the end, but there's like no in the middle, because you're just going to end up with like 1,000-word chapter and then split onto something else. So it is a balance, and I think the genre's managing it a lot better for audio. But then I love stats. I like Primal Hunter. I like Unbound. I love all the big books with the big stat sheets because I like listening to it. It is like Daniel says, it's like a break. It's like that you get to listen to the whole thing, and that to me is what lit RPG really is all a crunch. And I do get the separation, but I'm also on the other side of the fence, if you get it. So there you go.
I understand completely. I'm going to go with Jeff on this next one.
All right. So the majority of my books don't usually have the heavy stats like some of the lit RPG does. That's kind of different with more of my latest stuff, but the dungeon stuff typically hasn't had heavy stats. Bio Dungeon was an exception, just because it was fun having the different types of immune cells and their cost and what they did and the nicknames for all the different types. That was fun to have, but that wasn't on the human side of things because he, didn't magically get a spreadsheet. And that kind of applies to the whole universe. So Hungry Dungeon has a little bit of that, but that's more of the menus. So what ingredients you need to make the dish and all that. On the other hand, the sci-fi one I'm writing now, because of the AI and the corporate nature of things, that one has more sci-fi, and Station Company Corp, more sci-fi, has more tables than that. And the next book that we're writing is going to have even more, but we're taking it slow there. I would have to say, compared to most authors, I'm not as heavy stat, but I do have a lot of tables, which is the difference. And I do love me some Microsoft Word tables. I have my own little special format for all of those.
That's a beautiful thing. What about you?
I think
Sorry,
this kind of goes.
I meant Misty.
That's okay.
I meant Misty.
That's okay. I think this kind of goes back to the general idea that you can't please everybody. So, there's people who hate Harry Potter, or, Matt Dinneman was posting some of his 1-star reviews of his series, right? And I think stats is probably one of the divisive things among readers. They either love it or hate it, and there are some in between. And I think you kind of have to pick a lane and stay in it. I think whatever lane you pick of your stats, whether it's very, very crunchy or just mentions of progression and how you've leveled, you're going to please some people and not others. So I do agree that it would be great to put things off in other chapters. My problem is I like to put the stat sheets as kind of part of the storyline, right? As he reads his stat, well, what did he think? And he's surprised by this change, or he's disappointed that he didn't level this. And I find that hard to do if I chunk it over into another chapter. So I kind of just put my head in the sand and hope the narrator makes it sound good. So sorry. Yeah, and then I did a poll one time. I said, hey, is my book got too many stats? What do you want to see? More of the full menu, just the updates, less stats altogether. And that was over on Royal Road with the followers over there. And the general consensus was most people want just the facts, ma'am, just the updates. What's changed? So that's kind of, if you're trying to decide as an author in Lit RPG, that's kind of a good middle road to sit at. Show them what's improved and don't bog them down with all of the details.
Absolutely. So I have two questions here, and I'm going to sort of combine them into one. They come from Ryan Maxwell and from JD Glasscock. Ryan asks, is there a genre you would never write or narrate in? And JD asks, what is the genre in Lit RPG you will probably never drop into? Let's start with Dawn on this one.
I knew you were going to say that.
I've done all the genres, so I don't know.
I think I kind of probably would never really write romance, just like in general kind of normal romance. As for sort of like genres I've written in, I've written harem under A. Knowles. I've written space fantasy with Alex Knowles with the Bright Lord, cultivation and racing. I don't think there's anything I wouldn't try. My next series is actually progression fantasy, a little bit more sort of like really slice of life kind of stuff, which I'm really hoping will be okay. It is going to be female main character, so again, it's like I just can't not do one or the other. I have to mix things, and there's just I just want to try it all. So that's me. Bit of everything.
I understand that. I'm going to go with Daniel on this one.
In regards to what I would probably never want to perform in general, nonfiction. I need something of a bit of a hook for me, and nonfiction just doesn't get me in the same way that fiction does. I think it's just in the way that it's written, or it's just in the way that a lot of the people listening to it expect it to be dry, and they expect it to be very just the facts, just no embellishments, no nothing. And I am very much not that, for better and for worse, depending on what reviews you read. But it just doesn't, get me going. It doesn't get me excited to do. But Lit RPG, I'll do it all. I love the genre. I love just even the concept of the genre. I love how even though, there's so much of it and so many fans of it, it still feels kind of underground. It still feels kind of, like a secret club. So to be able to do everything in that genre, whether it be slice of life, progression, isekai, portal, all that jazz, it just feels like, hey, I'm a part of something kind of cool and kind of niche and kind of special. And I don't want to lose that. So I'll work in everything until my voice gives out and people are tired of listening to me. So you're stuck with me, guys. Sorry.
And we love you with every bit of our hearts.
Aww.
Let's go with Jeff on this question.
So my instinctual answer is just romance, but honestly, it would there's not really a genre in lit RPG that I wouldn't. Well, maybe harem or romance, and not because I don't want to do it, it's because I probably wouldn't be very good at it, to be quite honest. I've already done slime, and I've already done the sci-fi, and I've already done the world as a video game, and I'm gonna write the giant robot and the dark urban, which isn't a lit RPG. So kind of checking all the boxes here so far, but definitely romance and harem. I'd probably look for a co-writer. That's what I tend to do when I want to experiment in something outside. Is I find a co-writer first who does it in that genre, and then I sort of learn best habits in writing that.
Nice. Beautiful. And Misty.
Well, this is a panel on genre hopping, so we are the versatile crowd here. And I do find that authors tend to be much more reading from quite a few varieties versus a lot of fans tend to be like, this is my lane, period, and I don't read outside of it, which was a eye opener to me because I read almost everything. I think I would probably say horror and erotica are probably the things I don't really read and probably wouldn't ever write in. And but everything else is fair game, even nonfiction. So but I was surprised when I first started this writing stuff that there were people. I actually sent an ARC copy of Awakening Horde to somebody who signed up for it, wanted it. They should have known what it was about. They got it, and then they wrote back, I'm sorry, I can't actually read this because I don't read fantasy. So it was one of my post-apoc readers. And I'm like, yeah, but you accepted an ARC copy. You have it on your thing. You like me as an author. You actually can't read it. Like, is it physically like this? And it is for some readers. It is physically like, I can't read that. And so I think as authors, we're kind of the opposite, at least this crowd here. Like, we want palate cleansers. We want to go try something else. We want to do something else. In lit RPG, I probably wouldn't write harem or probably not dungeon either, because I really have a hard time getting my brain into the idea of a gem being a character. Unless, well, like Jonathan Brooks does it, it's an actual person who was born as a dungeon boy. I could do that. So
yeah, the
other than that, I really like all of the lit RPG. Even there, I see people who are stay in their lane and won't read the other ones, and I'm like, really, those are good books. You should read all of them. So that's my answer. Read it all. Write it all.
I'm actually currently working on the Dungeon Core series,
Ooh.
and actually voicing a Dungeon Core is actually far more intricate and interesting than you might assume. It's deceptively simple. Like, yeah, there's a lot of, sometimes they're one word or two words, or they get across emotions, but how do you fill that one word with the emotions that they're feeling? So from an acting perspective, it is fascinating and really fun to get into the weeds on it. So
we talked about that on the dungeon panel. Writing from a singular location is its own challenges as a writer, because you can't change location. The location is the character, and you lose the agency of certain plot elements as a result. So Dungeon Lord tends to be a little easier to write because it's a person who takes charge of the dungeon or is a dungeon that can move. That's become a little bit more popular, but yeah, it's fun. And Daniel, just be sure you're in the Dungeon Core Facebook group so you can advertise all you want there.
Oh, fun. It'll be the next Lions Lineage book that's coming out from Mountain Dale Press. Working on that currently. Just about done today, hopefully.
Nice.
And yes, I saw you, Harmon. Live by the book, die by the book.
Beautiful. All right, so there was a question that came from Steve Campbell that I just loved. Do you worry about working in different genres versus readers? There's massive appetite to have your next book in the series they love. And if so, how do you balance that? And I'm going to go with, it's not Whitney, it's
Misty?
It's Misty. I'm so sorry. I'm losing in the name.
I am so bad with names that I am the most patient person with being called by the wrong name. You're totally good. I'm sorry, I forgot the question now. I got distracted.
Pop it back up.
Geneva, give us some help.
Oh, there we go. Thank you very much.
Aha.
Thanks, Geneva.
So I actually ran into this, like I just explained with my newsletter. I think I have 4,000 or so people on it, and most of them were built with dystopia and post-apoc. So this is something that when you hop genres, one thing from a business perspective, you kind of have to understand your demographics of who's actually picking up your books and reading it. So for post-apoc, it's like, I think 50 to 70-year-old conservative men and women who really get. So you're talking like your preppers, your people who want to be ready in case of disaster. And I find too, as you notice in books, is that like people who read it want to be the hero in the story. So when you write post-apoc, you're going to have a prepper character who happens to have food and water and guns, and they're going to save their neighborhood, or they're going to drive off the gang or whatever. And then when you switch over to Lit RPG, if you're looking, the vast majority, there are us gamer girls out there, but the vast majority are men who are somewhere in the 20 to 40-year-old range who like to game, right? And now they're married, they have jobs, they can't go game with their buddies, so now they're reading their games in Lit RPG. And you need to then target that group. And that's why, as you see, I have a pen name. So that's one thing you can do is Misty Zog is my post-apoc one, and MZog, it teaches Amazon not to get the two audiences mixed up, because then it's really hard to advertise. Am I advertising to the 70-year-old conservative guy over here or the 25-year-old gamer over here? So it's hard to balance. What the hardest part is the marketing. So what do I do with my newsletter that's got all these conservative people now that I'm writing Lit RPG? My solution is the lazy one. I just keep sending I just send new stuff to the same people. And I'm like, if you like me, you'll stick around. And if you don't, you'll leave. If I had more time and effort, I would probably make 2 separate newsletters and funnel my Lit RPG people over here. And I'd write, stuff about gaming or things of interest to them in my newsletter, and then keep the, how to purify water in an emergency over here. So it depends. But you can't, I couldn't keep writing post-apoc because I didn't want to write it anymore, so I didn't. So then I went and found something I wanted to write. So you got to balance it. And then all of us have to market on our own because we're independent, and that's as much work. I used to think it was like, write this much writing and this much business stuff. And I'm finding it's this much writing and this much business stuff.
Yeah, the fish.
So
the big fish.
It's big. And so that's the hardest part when you switch genres, is your marketing campaign, switched from 50-year-old people, conservatives, to 20-year-old gamers. And now you have to figure out how to sell. So that's part of it, though. So anyway.
Okay. We'll hop over to Dawn for this question.
I think it's kind of like Dawn kind of died when Alex was born, but it has a story because, unfortunately, Space Seasons came to a stop. I had my cover artist completely ghost me. I was literally about to finish like the second arc of 4 books, and she just completely ditched me, and that was it. It was like I had to switch because I had people relying on me. At the end of the day, I had my editors and everyone else sort of like. And it was all lined up for the rest of the year. And I was like, holy crap, what can I do now? I can't publish this book because I've no cover for it. So I was kind of lucky that I did have Alex to fall back to, because then I kind of switched a bit and gave Alex all the work instead. So Alex kind of got like the main sort of like right inside of me for like 18 months. And then I only kind of brought Dawn back again this year with the Cyberpunk series with the City of Artem, which was absolutely brilliant. And I loved working on it with the guys. But again, it's that sub kind of genre that really kind of doesn't have a set amount of people in it, and unfortunately it really just hasn't even done anywhere near as good as Space Seasons. And I'm kind of quite shocked, really, because the amount of effort that I put into the book, I'm not saying it, I did more than Space Seasons, because I didn't, but the size of the book is it's like 2 in 1, and there's just nothing there for it, which is really sad. And maybe it's kind of like I'm hoping the audio does better because it's one of them, but we're just kind of it's catch-22. It's going to be a big audio book. It's with 2 people. I absolutely adore them, and they nailed the characters completely out of the door. but it's one of them. Just nobody's kind of interested, and it's really sad to see. I really want Cyberpunk to do a lot better, but I guess it just doesn't, which is heartbreaking, really. So I'll go back to writing Alex tomorrow. It's like sci-fi, it's fantasy. It's like but I experiment all the time, so you'll see bits and pieces from me. I've still got a couple of series to wrap up for Alex, so sad.
All right. So we'll go with Daniel this time.
Well, from the narration standpoint, I suppose it's a little different in that I don't really get to know the figures. I don't know what sells. I can only go by reviews, and I can only go by estimations based on sales rankings. Because I do stuff per finished hour, I get paid, and that's it. So the publishers know all that info. Sometimes they'll switch things around, and a series will get pushed. Sometimes another series will get pushed up. Sometimes we book things out months in advance. Sometimes it's by the seat of my pants. That last one is very rare nowadays, because everything I try to have booked out like 6 months. I've already got next year like half booked, because that's just nice to have, but things change, things fluctuate. For me, I guess I hope that everyone does well. I hope that every single book I do finds its audience, but a lot of what I do now is throw it out into the void, see if people put stars on Amazon and Audible, and then just move on to the next one. So to me, I'm just kind of at the whim of the producers and just kind of hoping that people like it, like as much as I do. There have been ones that have done surprisingly well that I did not enjoy. And then there are ones that I'm like, oh, this is outstanding, and just can't find their audience, or their audience is capped at a lower level than I would like. So for me, on the narration end, it's all just a crapshoot. But I hope they do well.
Nice. And Jeff.
All right. I'll try to answer this quick because we're almost out of time there. So for me, my big series was the Slime Dungeon series, 6 books in that one. But I'm going to call it my unique issue, but it's not necessarily unique to all authors, was that when I wrote the first Slime Dungeon, I was not looking to publish or Lit RPG wasn't as big. It wasn't really a thing that even existed 2016. So as much fun as I had writing those books, in 7 years, 20 books, I write a lot better nowadays. And as a result, I need to honestly go back and rewrite them and maybe update the cover arts and all this fun stuff. But so I've gotten around that by writing in the same universe. So Bio Dungeon is in the same universe as Slime, and Hungry Dungeon is in the same universe as Slime. And whenever I get back to it, Dungeon Economics is in the same world as Slime. And they're all dungeon, and they're all, different parts of the world. They expand all that fun world development stuff. And another co-author project in that world once he has some space in there. So that's expanding the world with similar but different genres, because they're all different types of dungeon stuff. But I don't think I'll ever be able to go back to my Gamelet in the video game one, because that one didn't do anything, unfortunately. No reviews, no ratings, no money. Despite, I enjoyed writing it, but it is what it is. And, I've heard from other authors like Blaze. Everybody has that one series they really liked, but it doesn't sell. People ask for more, and it's, you some days you have to throw stuff against the wall, and you have to work with what sticks. So at the end of the day, it's a business, unfortunately.
Yeah, I love that people step out of the genre zones and do different things. I buy all the books that are just completely just like nuts. And if I see people asking for the subgenres in the group, those will be the first that I recommend because there's so much. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, Dungeon Crawler Carl is brilliant. Well deserved, but it's like every recommendation they're all mentioned, and I kind of really have to give the smaller people that they're so good, and they really need recognizing for all
There's
the
a
work.
lot of undiscovered gems.
There really is,
I'll
and
go find the series. It's like 7, 8
Ask.
books. And you're like, how come nobody's talking about this? Because it's
ask in the groups. Ask the groups. You will get me and the mods and everything just recommending the books that are a little bit more not recognized. And it does get asked quite a lot for all the different subgenres, but please ask, because there's so many out there and they need
leave
recognition.
a review too. That helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Reviews, definitely. Whether you don't like something in the book or not, just tell people your truth. That's all we ask. Be honest in any subgenre. So
Don't one star it to
Absolutely.
oblivion. Don't one star it to oblivion.
Yeah,
If you
no,
don't like
stars,
it,
guys,
3 stars
please,
to
we
1 star.
beg you.
A 1 star is the death to an independent
Yeah.
production.
Yeah.
3
That's
stars if
just
you don't like it. That's
terrible.
just
That's
let
fair.
other people give it a chance. So
yeah, that's
give
fair.
your thoughts, but 3 stars is a 1 star.
There's actually a gentleman that actually does do, I think, 4-star minimum now. But that's because he actually says did not finish at the end, but he will not rate anything under 4 stars now. And there's a guy that does that, and that's only because he's learned within the genre that anything below 3 stars it's death to most books. So
yeah. Once
absolutely.
a book has 4 stars and that 5th star is empty, then people just pass it by. So.
Yeah. And it's like
All right,
the
so I'm
sizes
gonna-
too. Sorry. Well,
Yeah. So I'm going to cut us there around that particular topic, just so that we can make sure that Daniel has a chance to announce any upcoming projects. I mean, we've heard from each of you, and we love all of you, and we want to hear your upcoming projects. But this is the first time we've seen Daniel on Guild of Picard. And
Go.
this
This
time,
year.
so-
This year, yeah. Haha. But that's fair.
Yeah. But
Sure.
we want to hear your upcoming projects.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that. Thank you, Geneva. Yes, my website does get updates. My Instagram gets updates more. So if you want to follow, that's at Dan the Voiceman on Instagram. New release just dropped: Inherited Revenge by James Haddock. Sci-fi and fantasy constantly hopping back and forth, back and forth. That just released today. It's a great, fun time. I also have, like I mentioned, Lions Lineage 2 dropping later in the year. I have a bunch of stuff from Podium coming out in the next few months. I have Hack, Slash, and Burn. The final in that trilogy is dropping by December, hopefully, or at least up for pre-sale. And I'm going to have a bunch of stuff later in the winter and then going into January. But a lot of stuff currently in the works.
Sweet. I'm going to go to Dawn/Alex.
So I mean, I do have a lot to wrap up in both names, but if you want to kind of watch for new things for me, watch Royal Road in the next month, because I'll be dropping something new for National Novel Writing Month, kind of the write-a-thon. I've been challenged by someone to write 55,000 words in 5 days, so I'm absolutely going for it. This is a new series. This is sci-fi progression, and I'm already about 20,000 words in, and I'm hoping to finish the book within the first 5 days in November. So follow me on Royal Road, Conundra. You can find me anywhere. But yeah, Alex is someone else to follow. I do have a few things I need to finish, both names, this next year. So.
All right, so Misty, because I absolutely have fallen in love with your books. I want to know what you've got coming up.
More.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate it. I've got so my first book in my Lit RPG series, Fieldwall Academy. I started on Royal Road, and it came out end of July. And book 2 is done. I'm wrapping up book 3 right now. I'm editing book 2 so I can send it off to J.S. Arquin, my awesome narrator. And so book 2 with audio and everything will come out the end of January. If you're impatient, you can read all of book 2 and the first part of book 3 on Royal Road, and then there's another 20 chapters on my Patreon. So that's what I'm up to right now. And if you like post-apoc, that stuff is all Kindle Unlimited. So feel free to read some disaster fiction if that's your thing.
So I've just been informed by Geneva that there's a lot of chance to talk because there's no takeover coming up. So if there's a huge project you've got coming up, please tell us. We want to know. Jeff.
All right. I got this coming up. I've got my big Mecha Dungeon apocalypse story that I'm writing on Royal Road. The art actually was done by my pixel artist for the video game that's currently on hiatus. So real happy that one's coming out, and I'm going to be pushing myself to either finish up this month, getting chapters out every day from what I've accumulated, and then going straight into dark urban fantasy with my first one, The World Ruled by Monsters. I'll probably do that on Royal Road too.
Very, very nice. Daniel, please.
I actually, if we have a little time,
Yeah, we've got
I'm gonna
a few more
plug
minutes.
pander. So I've had a few that I have about 3 or 4 that I know off the top of my head that I think deserve a little more love that I've done, and they're across all genres. So if you like sci-fi, just straight up classic sci-fi, The Executioners by Jason Cordova and Matt Novotny. I recently did that. That actually won the Reader's Favorite Award for Best Fiction Audiobook, Gold Medal. I highly recommend that. That is a personal favorite of mine that has a lot of great characters and a very heavy Magnificent Seven in space vibe, which I just think is awesome. Thanks, Geneva. In regards to more lit RPG series that I think could use a little more love, the 12 Cataclysm series, that whole thing by Valerios, that is some great fun and features crab fighters and orcs and stuff. It's kind of a fun time if you like Russian orcs, which I do, apparently, by all the books I narrate with Russian accents. And Apocalypse Regression by R.A. Mejia and Charles Dean. That one.
Oh yeah.
I was
That
going
one
to say
was
that one too.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. That was a surprise that how much people liked it. I was genuinely pleased with how much people enjoyed it, because I was giving it to them, or given it by them, and my very good friend Elizabeth and I had a blast recording those characters, and I'm like, this is great. I hope people really like this. This is very interesting in regards to time travel and dungeon mechanics and all that jazz, and just basically going back and trying to fix a future that now will not happen because you changed the past, but you can make it better because the future before sucked because everybody was dying and shit. But those are 3 that I really recently loved, and I'm working on book 2 of Apocalypse Regression currently, which should be out hopefully in December. If all goes well, late December, early January is what I'm hoping for. So yeah, those are 3.
Okay, that just makes me so flippin' excited, and to have Daniel on here, he's like my idol when it comes to narrators. If I could steal him and have him narrate my book, I absolutely would. So I'm just in awe. Thank you all for joining us in the panel today. This has been wonderful. I'm sorry if there's been a little bit of reverb coming my way. It's the joy of having a real job that you got to go out and actually you do. Sometimes you got to work in your work truck. So
thank you for being here.
I love you guys with all my heart. Thank you for joining us. If you have more questions for these wonderful narrators and authors, we have the information up on Discord. You can put your questions there. If I didn't get to your questions, I'm so sorry, but this was a wonderful panel. I love you all.
Thanks,
Yep.
guys.
Back at you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
So much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tell you
Bye,
guys.
guys.
See ya.